These are the times that try men's souls. The government is corrupt. The political system is dysfunctional. Both political parties have not only failed us, they have betrayed us. We cannot trust them with our futures. We, the people, must take back control ourselves. Welcome to the revolution, and welcome to Revolution Television. Thank you for joining us here at AEA4USA.com, headquarters for the Second American Revolution, AR2. My name is Lawrence Hebron. And now on to our revolutionary look at the news. Headline: Department of Justice decides not to prosecute Lois Lerner. Ian McDonald is here to get us started on this story. So Ian, we'll turn it over to you.
Well, folks, I can tell you that Ian is pretty damn frustrated. In fact, I don't think I've ever been this frustrated in my life. Things I see going on in my country just make me absolutely furious. You know, some years back I had the opportunity to visit Normandy Beach. It is quite a humbling place when you think of the sacrifice that happened on that sand. Sitting on a hillside above that is the American Cemetery. It's an incredible place. If you haven't been there, I highly recommend seeing it. Sitting in nice, neatly little lined up rows are thousands of crosses and stars of David, and sitting side by side you will find generals and privates. It's an incredible place. And when I think of the sacrifice that happened on that beach, and all of the thousands and thousands of good Americans who have died to protect this country, I become so incredibly angered when I think of what I see happening in our country, and especially in the city of Washington, D.C. To me, the whole city of Washington is one corrupt cesspool, a cesspool of unimaginable graft, corruption, and garbage. Right down to the mayor of the city itself. Recently in the news, the Department of Justice has decided that it will not prosecute IRS official Lois Lerner for contempt of Congress. I have a real problem with that. The U.S. Department of Justice is going to ensure that the American people have absolutely no justice for the criminal acts of the United States Department of Treasury Internal Revenue Service, who was used as a political pawn by the Democratic Party sitting in Washington, D.C. to target American citizens. Folks, the IRS is more feared than the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the CIA combined. The IRS has the ability to destroy your life with virtually no probable cause. It does not need probable cause. How did we reach this position? How did we reach a position where the Department of Justice represents anything but justice? To the Department of Justice, Black Panthers blocking polling places is nothing to be concerned with. To the Department of Justice, the use of the Internal Revenue Service as a weapon against the American people does not deserve justice. Yet it will go out of its way to create discontent over a false pretense. Folks, the whole Michael Brown thing, that was false pretense. There was no hands-up situation. It was propagated by the media, it was propagated through lies, and it was propagated the Obama administration and the Holder Department of Injustice. Their actions have nothing to do with justice. I can think of no crime to be perpetrated against the American people outside of mass murder that is more serious than depriving half of the American citizens of their constitutional rights under the First Amendment. And that's exactly what the Department of Justice did with Lois Lerner. They deprived half of the American people who identify themselves with Tea Party ideology of their constitutional rights under the First Amendment. I can think of no crime that is more serious than that. And then when challenged by the Congress, the DOJ and the Obama administration thumbs their nose at the American people. Folks, why do we tolerate this shit? I gotta ask, why do we continue to tolerate it? It is time to drain the cesspool. It is time to take out the garbage. And that's just what Washington, D.C. is. A cesspool full of garbage. All I can tell you is the founding fathers would have been shooting by now. Does the American people not have any spine left? Are you just going to roll over and allow them to walk on you like this? The only chance we have to reverse the course of this country is to stand up and do something about it. Folks, what side of history do you want to be on? We are at a major breaking point in our history. We are repeating history again. Just as Neville Chamberlain went to Munich and kowtowed to Hitler, Obama is kowtowing to the Iranians right now. He is kowtowing to a regime that openly seeks the total destruction of Israel and the United States. These people are not our friends. That's an act of treason in my mind, giving aid and comfort to the enemy. At the same time, the Obama administration, the Department of Justice through the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, is seeking to strip you of another constitutional right, the right of self-defense. Don't know about you, but that's pretty important to me. Even more important than my own personal defense is the defense of my family. I take it pretty damn serious. Government wants to strip you of your right of self-defense through degradation of the Second Amendment. You see, the Founding Fathers understood that we were going to have garbage in our lives. They understood that sometimes that garbage would actually make it to positions of high office. They understood that that garbage would seek to control you and take away your freedom. So they documented your freedoms. They put them in the form of the Constitution. The Constitution is a limitation on the government. It is a limitation on how much power the government actually has. Folks, that piece of paper and the backbone of the American people is the only thing between freedom and tyranny. And when I think of all the graves on the beaches of Normandy, and when I think of all the graves in Arlington National Cemetery, I become absolutely furious. I become furious because those men did not die for nothing. Those soldiers, both male and female, did not die for nothing. They died for a cause. They died for a belief in a political system that protects the people, where the people are in charge. And what we have now is far from that dream. Folks, it is time to take out the garbage. And to my brothers and sisters in law enforcement, you are quickly reaching a point where you are going to have to make a decision. You need to ask yourself, what side of history? You need to ask yourself what side of history you want to be on. How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as the benevolent police officer that took care of the people? Or do you want to be remembered as another form of the Stasi or the Gestapo? Because if you do what the government is looking to ask you to do, you are putting yourself between the American people and the garbage in Washington, D.C. I hate to see you in that position because I know you to be good people. But to my friends in law enforcement, please look at where you want to be in history. How do you want to be remembered by your children? That time is coming. That time is here. Folks, it's time to take out the garbage. Well, folks,
I think this piece speaks to the problems in America at many levels. You've covered a number of things. Perhaps the most obvious is the flagrant abuse of power. The party in power abuses that power, then uses that power to cover its own abuse of that power. But there's so much more to what's going on here as revealed in this story, and you kind of start peeling back the layers of the onion skin. Think about it. If we didn't have a large, overbearing IRS, it couldn't be used to abuse us like it has. If we didn't have such a complicated, overbearing tax system to confiscate our wealth, we wouldn't need such a large, overbearing IRS. If we didn't have such a deep-seated, oppressive, two-party political system, it couldn't turn our nation into a bloodied battlefield where each side engages in political jihad to secure its own power at our expense. If we didn't have such despicable, unscrupulous, self-serving politicians dominating that political process, we wouldn't have such a deep-seated, oppressive, two-party political system. And if we didn't have such educational, philosophical, and moral decline in America, we the people would never tolerate any of the above. Well, obviously, none of this abuse can be carried out without the assistance of law enforcement at some level. Ian, how do you see the role of law enforcement in conducting and perpetuating this kind of abuse of government power?
Well, I think law enforcement is in a very precarious position. They are tasked to uphold the law. They are tasked to carry out the laws of the land. The problem comes when the laws are no longer constitutional or no longer moral. And what I see happening, and what really concerns me, and the reason that I brought out the conversation with law enforcement there, is that they are going to find themselves continuously asked more and more to carry out laws that are unjust and to carry out the wishes of the political elite that defy the Constitution. So they are in a position where they are going to have to make some very serious decisions. Do they want to be on the side of history that represents constitutionality, doing what the people hired them to do? Or do they want to be on the side of history that will put them in a position where they're going to be knocking on the doors and confiscating guns for? I see that as a very, very precarious position because I believe that there is still a very large segment of the population that does have a backbone and will not tolerate it. So and again, I consider law enforcement, those in law enforcement, to be a brother, so to speak. They typically are on the side of taking care of the people, wanting to do what's right in history, wanting to do what's right for the country as a whole. Obviously, they're going to be finding themselves in a position where they're going to be asked to do things that are unconstitutional. And they're going to have some very difficult decisions to make. And that's one of the reasons why Obama's plan to federalize law enforcement is such an egregious problem that we're going to be facing. Federalized law enforcement will become unstoppable. There will be very, very little difference between law enforcement and with the people as a whole. So we've got some very, very serious times ahead of us, and I think that some very serious decisions got to be made, and I hope they make the right one. And the same with our military, because I have a feeling both of those are going to be used against the American people in the future.
Well, indeed, as you've said, they're going to be in a very precarious position. You in law enforcement, you in the military, are going to have to decide why you're there. Are you there for a paycheck? Are you there for a pension? Or are you there to protect and serve we the people and our constitutional rights? Decision time is coming up. Well, that's our revolutionary look at the news for today. Our quote to go along with it: liberty may be endangered by the abuse of liberty, but also by the abuse of power. James Madison. Well, we here at the American Eagle Alliance are leading the charge in fighting the Second American Revolution, AR2. Among other things, we conduct Patriot Training Days. It will teach you and your organization how to fight and win the Second American Revolution in less time than it took to win the first, without taking over the White House, the Congress, the Supreme Court, or any constitutional amendments. In 1776, we the people rocked the world. It's time to do it again. If you'd like to schedule an event where we can come to your area and talk to its Patriot organizations about this plan or other ideas that we talk about in Solutions Guidebook for Rebuilding America the Great or AR2 Handbook for the Second American Revolution, please call area code 909-913-7878. Again, 909-913-7878. Remember, you can go to AEAforusa.com to see past recordings of episodes and other items of interest to the Patriot community as well. Again, that's AEA4USA.com. In those books we talked about, Solutions Guidebook for Rebuilding America the Great and AR2 Handbook for the Second American Revolution. They're available in a number of places. Probably the easiest to get is Amazon. Look for it under my name, Hebron. Hebron. Well, thanks for listening to us again. Tell your friends they can listen to archived episodes of Revolution Television on AEA4USA.com. Now, let's get cracking, Patriots. We've got a country to save.